Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome to my third video this week using the Simon Says Stamp December card kit. Today I'm not going to be working with the pattern paper. I'm going to be working with this Snowflake Stencil that comes with the kit and the craft cardstock that's also in the kit. I am going to take my Color Box Frost White ink and I'm going to place my stencil down on the craft cardstock, and with a sponge dauber on my fingertip I'm going to sort of twist the dauber around to apply the ink all around the stencil. And you really have to hold this stencil tightly in place to make sure it doesn't move, and move your hands around a little bit so you can get each of the different points. And don't go too far out past the tip of each snowflake because you're going to be adding more snowflakes and you don't want them to run into each other. Alright, so that's the first one. Now I'm going to see how I need to place this one around that one. So if I had used my white ink too far out, I wouldn't have enough room for another snowflake so close anyway. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm speeding this up until I have my whole panel covered with snowflakes. And all that area in between the snowflakes, that's craft cardstock, I'm going to cover that up. So there shouldn't really be any craft showing except for where the snowflakes are. This is called the ghost stamping technique, and I guess you can't really call it ghost stamping technique because I'm not using a stamp. If you go to my blog, there is a link to a card that I used when I was doing ghost stamping with an actual stamp. So this is just kind of a little different with the stencil, but you get the same effect. So there we have it with all the white ink on the cardstock, and I'm going to let that dry because it's pigment ink and it takes a little while to dry, and I'm going to work on my sentiment. I am using the Simon Says Stamp Big Christmas Wishes. I'm using some masking tape, which comes in a really small roll. It's perfect for kind of cutting little strips. And I'm going to cover up the big and stamp the Sending Holiday Wishes in Versamark. So that way I can just heat emboss with black those words. So I'm going to heat that to set it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to cover the other words that I just stamped so that I just have big. I'm going to put some Versamark on that. And I'm going to stamp right over it so that now I just have the big. I'm going to cover that with white embossing powder. And even though I had covered that, cleaned and covered that Sending Holiday Wishes, it still had a little tiny bit of Versamark on it, so I did get a little bit of white powder stuck to the black, but I just brushed it off with a stipple brush. Now I'm going to heat that to set it, and for some reason, I don't know why, but I had some gaps in my G there. So what I ended up doing was taking a white gel pen and just filling in the holes quickly, and you can't even tell at all. Alright, now comes the ghost stamping technique. So I'm going to cover my snowflake so that the craft is covered, and then I'm going to move my snowflake stencil just to the upper right, maybe like a ½ millimeter, so I can see some of the craft underneath, and then I'm going to cover some of the white as you move it. So I'm going to use the same technique with my twisting of the sponge dauber, and with the peacock feathers I'm just going to cover it all just like I did with the white. And where my blue is covering white, it's going to turn out to be a light blue. Where my blue is covering the craft that I just exposed by moving my stencil just a little bit, it's going to show up as a dark blue. So when I remove that, you can see, so you've got a white edge on the right side of the snowflake, and then you've got the craft center of the snowflake. And then on the left hand side, you can't even tell really, you have to look closely, but there is a dark edge of blue, and that's what makes it seem like it's popping off the page. So anyway, you're just going to keep doing this on all these snowflakes, and make sure you move your snowflake in the same direction on each one, so that you get the same kind of light effect on each one. And then for the space in between each snowflake, you do want to make sure that you cover that with the blue. So you're not going to have any white areas anymore. It's all going to be blue. And you really have to hold this stencil pretty tight, make sure it doesn't move. Alright, so I'm going to adhere this to some black cardstock. And I normally use about 1/8 of an inch mat when I layer my cardstock, but this time I just decided to do 1/16 of an inch just because I wanted just a little subtle black outline. And then I'm going to adhere that panel to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch folded cardstock. Now I'm just marking my edges here so I can trim my vellum. And I decided to color some clear rhinestones with a Copic marker 110, it's just black. And I'm going to hold my vellum in place so that I can get these rhinestones lined up just right. And I'm just going to use my paper piercer to kind of grab them and place them down. I'm just going to put them equidistant on all 4 corners. I didn't really let them dry very long, so I'm doing a lot of touching of them, so I had to go back and kind of touch them up a little bit. But anyway, so I've got the glue dot that I'm going to use, and it's kind of big, so I decided to just cut it in half. And surprisingly enough, these glue dots are really easy to cut in half. So I put 1/2 glue dot behind each rhinestone, and that way you don't see how the vellum was adhered to the card, and it's plenty enough stick to make it stay there. And here I am touching those rhinestones up. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.